Okay, Rich, Ben, you ready to roll? Awesome.
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, well, listen, so, thankful for Rich Crawford and Ben Sands agreeing to join us today at Mays Business School, Texas A&M University. And I want to start off by first introducing both of them before I hand it over to them. Rich Crawford is the president and CEO of Integrated Global Services, IGS, since 2009. Over the last decade, Rich has led the transformation of IGS from an entrepreneurial company with unique technologies and less than 15 million in revenue into one of the most trusted global service solutions providers for mission critical equipment to the world's leading energy, power, and industrial companies in over 50 countries and now over 100 million in revenue. He has his MBA from the University of Virginia. And prior to IGS, Rich worked at Harris Williams & Company, Capital One, and Ernst & Young. He has a wife and 3 children. Ben Sands, performance and founder of Sands Leadership, his own firm, a research and consulting firm that performance-minded leaders drive clarity, commitment, and accountability across their organizations. He's a recognized expert in high potential leadership development. Ben is a trusted partner to leaders at global companies such as General Dynamics, PwC, Gartner, Morgan Stanley, Disney, and Comcast, and many others. Before founding Sands Leadership, Ben spent a decade in management consulting. He studied at Duke University and is also has a wife and 3 children. And, it's really great to have you both here. I know this is just going to be an all-star, session with you both. And again, just really want to thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
It is our pleasure, Richard.
And just too quickly before they get started, both Rich and Ben insisted on this being a bit more interactive than our usual sessions. So they may be asking you to type something in the chat and to participate. So please, by all means, if you can, that would be great. Make this fun. Okay, Ben, I'm handing it over to you two.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. Richard, it's great to be here on behalf of Rich and myself. This is a real treat. We're going to be able to share some ideas that we have developed individually and co-created in our work together with the hope of making this as practical and actionable for you, assuming that many of you are in the middle of an MBA curriculum or program and thinking about your path forward once you leave Mays. So again, the focus here is to help you show up in the new world of work in a way that maximizes your value and impact in the organizations that you join. So we're really excited to be here and share what we've learned. Couple of things before we get started. Number one, questions. If you have questions, we hope you have questions. We're going to take questions at the end of the talk. But if you just want to ask the question, type it into the chat function. Just put like question : type it in the chat so that at the end of the talk, we can go back to the chat and look at the questions if there are any. But we'll open it up for Q&A at the end of the talk. Like Richard said, we want to use the chat box to kind of create some interactivity throughout the talk. So to kick things off, maybe everybody could share just real quick, like there's people from all over the world here on this call. Many of you though, of course, are in College Station today, but just in the chat box, just to make sure the technology is working, type in where your hometown is, right? So find that chat box and just type in your hometown and send that through in the chat box. Just want to make sure that the technology is working here. Awesome. All right, here we go. Man, Jacksonville, San Antonio, Houston, China, LA, Egypt. Wow. All right. Variety of spots in Texas. No surprise there. Fantastic. Colombia. Man, fantastic. All right, perfect. Looks like the chat box is working. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Rich and I put together a few slides to kind of help with the structure of the talk. So let's just see if we can make this work. And here we go. Everybody, give me a thumbs up if you can see the slides. Everyone got it? All right, very cool. Well, Richard just introduced both Rich and I. Let's just add just a little bit of color context. Rich, you want to just provide just a little bit more context around kind of you and IGS?
Sure, Ben. Yeah. So as Richard highlighted, so what IGS does is we work inside some of the most critical process equipment all around the world. So our customers are companies like Chevron, close in your backyard there, Shell, Saudi Aramco, Luminant is a power generating company, obviously based there in Texas, but we work with power gen all over the world, paper, process, et cetera. And what we do is we coat using metal alloys the inside of high temperature equipment, and we extend its life by increasing reliability and basically stopping corrosion, erosion, and scale. Just a little bit on my background. I've led IGS for 11 years. It's been a lot of fun. Have taken the company, up significantly to about sixfold of where we started about 10 years ago. Have sold it 3 times. I'm just starting my 3rd private equity partnership with a private equity firm in New York called J.F. Lehman. And then, just by way of background, I actually came over from investment banking, and my vision here at IGS at first was just to help turn the company around. And so it's been a heck of a lot more fun than just that, and has involved a ton of leadership development, has really been exhilarating, tough. There have been some highs and lows, and so happy to share a little bit more about that today. But just by way of background, I'm curious, how many of you guys have worked for a private equity backed firm, have some experience working in private equity, either on the operating side or the investing side? Maybe type in either the company or the private equity firm name. Any experience? But yeah, I mean, happy to share more about that and what that's been like over the last few years.
So Rich, it doesn't look like anybody actually has any private equity experience. Can you take like 1 minute and just explain what the heck private equity is?
Okay. Yeah, sure. So we have one there. So EGP, which is a really good firm. So what private equity does is, it is firms that manage institutional pools of capital. So pension funds, colleges, and universities. I'm sure Texas A&M has its own fund, which gets invested into alternative investments. Some of that goes into hedge funds, like public hedge funds, but a lot of it goes into private equity. And so what they do is they hire really smart people who are investing on their behalf to invest in companies like IGS, the company that I run. And the vision is pretty simple: to put capital in and then to partner up with management teams who are aligned with them to grow the business over a 3 to 5 year horizon, and then they sell the company for a return. So that's what we've done at IGS now twice. We're in our 3rd stint, and the vision is alignment, getting management on the same side, and hopefully, if all is successful, share the success that their investors share with the management teams themselves. So it's high paced. It's high expectation, but it's really been a lot of fun, and certainly we have a ton of resources that we can bring to bear because of the institutional capital that we enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Just for everybody, if you have questions about private equity and what's the difference between working for a private equity owned company or a traditional either publicly or privately owned company, definitely save those for the end of the conversation. Rich has a ton of experience in that regard. My work is really with companies that are both high paced and high impact. Simply put, I'm an executive coach. I work with mission-driven leaders like Rich to help them make better decisions. Some of you may have worked with an executive coach before. At the end of the day, coaching really provides 3 specific values. 1, helps you to pressure test decision-making. Right? We all have cognitive biases, blind spots. Any kind of coach is going to help you ensure that you make better decisions faster. Number 2, Coaching provides new ideas and insights, right? By working with a whole bunch of different companies, I get to see things that somebody working inside one company doesn't get to see. So I'm constantly sharing best practices and new ideas with companies like IGS. And number three, just saving time, helping create the accountability that you need to actually continue to move forward. So in my work, it's all about, creating greater clarity, confidence, and accountability across these companies. So in that vein, right, I want to start talking about like what we see, right? Rich and I have been working together with, as part of the, within IGS for almost over a year now. And one of the first places that we start with any kind of company is by anticipating or talking about kind of what is holding us back, what will ultimately lead to underperformance over time if we don't address it now. So here I want to pull in all you talented MBA students here with a little bit of a thought starter question, right? Why don't you answer this in the chat box? Everyone come up with one idea. There's no right or wrong, but just in your opinion, why do companies underperform? Any reason why a company might underperform? What, in your opinion, what's one reason why companies underperform? Meaning they don't meet the expectations of their owners, their shareholders, their employees. Nathan, misaligned incentives, poor leadership, yes. Lack of vision and mission, management strategy, oversaturated market, yes. Poor business model, yes. Not knowing their why, amen. Cost of capital, that's getting fancy, Ryan. I like it. Yeah. Poor management decisions. What else? Got about 60 people, over 60 people on this. Just take a stab. What's one reason why, in your opinion, companies underperform? Culture, bad culture, doesn't go for new ideas. Yes. What else? Lack of motivation. Amen, James. What else? Get too comfortable, don't change. Teamwork issues. Yes. Awesome. Vision, communication. All right. You guys are getting your money's worth out of the Mays School of Business. Richard, we can check this one. Check that box. This is good stuff. These are all spot on, right? These are all spot on. Every one of the issues that you've shared has at some level led to company underperformance. So when in my work and the work that we do in collaboration with Rich is to say, okay, like what are the biggest threats, right, to business performance over time? And I just want to share with you four that sort of come up, and I think it's somewhere in this chat box, everyone has touched on each one of these, but this is a really nice way to think about the issues that the companies that you are about to be hired by are most likely facing, right? So think about this from an interview perspective, right? You can almost guarantee that the person interviewing you will, and the organization that he or she works for, will be facing one or more of these issues. Chances are they're facing all of them. The first issue is a lack of clarity, right? A lack of clarity. The organization doesn't know what to do. And specifically, they don't know what success looks like. What are the outcomes that we're trying to create? Number two, a lack of strategy, right? We don't know how to do what we want to do, right? We don't know specifically what to do next or in what order. Number three, a lack of engagement. Someone talked about motivation in the chat, right? This is the engagement issue. We don't want to do what we have to do. And number four, a lack of focus. And this is perhaps the most pervasive and often overlooked issue, is that we just can't find, we know what to do, we know how to do it, we want to do it, we're just getting our butt kicked by what we're going to refer to as the whirlwind in just a moment. All the urgent stuff going on, we can't find time to get our most important work done. So what we want to do today in this talk is kind of help you to think about how you, as a newly minted MBA, going back into the workforce, of course, can use this knowledge to better position yourself to be as successful as you possibly can be in this new organization and maximize the value and impact that you're creating, what we're going to call the new world of work, which is like essentially the post-COVID world of work. All right. Does that sound good? Everyone, if that sounds good, just type in the chat box, yes, with you. Just make sure everyone's following along. All right, good. Thank you, guys. All right, so the way we're going to set this up, we're going to introduce each, there's 4 ideas that we want to talk to And Rich is going to share a little bit of a personal story, and then I'm just going to share a couple of teaching ideas to help you apply some of the principles that Rich is talking about and make it happen in your own world of work. All right. So first step, number one, create clarity. Create clarity, right? Lack of clarity is one of those four root causes of underperformance. First thing you can do to create value and impact in an organization is to create clarity. Rich, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure, Ben. One of the things that I think about when I think about this topic of clarity is how important business mentors have been to me over my years. Mentors, coaches, colleagues that I've shared with. I'm a member of an organization called YPO, which has this institution called Forum, which is basically CEOs that connect with each other on a very transparent and confidential way to kind of share what is like most important and what's most troublesome in their lives, personal, professional, et cetera. And when I think about some of the value of that mentoring and coaching and just putting myself in positions where I'm learning from other people, one of the things that I try to do, and I've increasingly been focused on, is really getting clear about who I really am and what I aspire for, both personally and professionally, and then letting that spill out into what I am doing. So, as an example, what I'm doing today that I didn't do 5 years ago is that I, on an annual basis, and I look at it on a quarterly basis, I write down my vision for my life, and it's not a vision just for my marriage or for my family or for my work. It's sort of all of those things. Is what's the kind of life that I want? And then I share that with other people. And I share that with folks in the context of giving them an opportunity and asking them to hold me accountable for those things. What we started doing about 1.5 years ago at IGS, because I've been in this YPO forum for a long time, is I got really bold with respect to what I personally aspired for my life. And actually it's with a lot of Ben's help that I did it. He really kind of pushed me in this way. And it was, what's the kind of culture we want to create at IGS? Not just the kind of successful business, it's creating monetary outcomes, which there's plenty of that too. I mean, my whole team is very focused on getting the business from 100 million to 200 million of revenue in the next 4 to 5 years. So we've got very clear goals about what that looks like, but also how does that connect to our personal goals? And then just creating this environment where we're sharing that stuff more open, which helps us connect what we do on a daily basis with the stuff that really motivates us and drives us and gives us permission to kind of speak into that stuff. So that's just a quick anecdote there, Ben. But
awesome. Thanks, Rich. And it's a perfect segue, and one of the quotes that Rich is probably sick of hearing me share, because I talk about it all the time, that really speaks to exactly what Rich is saying, comes from a guy named Thomas Merton, who once wrote, some people spend their whole lives climbing the ladder of success, only to find, once they reach the top, that the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. This is the problem created by a lack of clarity. I know that every person on this call is fully capable, has got what I call the everything going for them, right? You're smart, you're driven, and you have access to resources that 99% of the world would kill to have access to. The problem, the risk that those advantages create, is that you can do almost anything you want to. Anything in this world is accessible to you. And that may sound awesome, except for the very important fact that the more opportunities you have, the higher is the degree of perceived regret. And so what people run into is what we call the paradox of choice. When you can choose from anything, right? When you have almost unlimited options, the question becomes, how do I actually decide? Right? How do I choose the path that's right for me? And a whole bunch of people will go through their 20s, their 30s, their 40s, never actually intentionally choosing their path. Never actually doing what Rich is talking about, which is defining and clarifying the specific actions and outcomes that they're trying to create. And so when you think about going into a company and creating clarity, there's a really important idea here that you have to embrace, right? This is perhaps the most important idea of this entire talk, which is you can't give what you don't have. If you are not clear yourself, it is going to be very, very hard for you to create clarity in your organization or across your team. And so what does that actually mean? What can you do right now? Well, you can start to get clear on certain specific things. And these are things that Rich, was just talking about. Get clear on the person that you want to be, the impact that you want to have, the problems that you want to solve, the difference that you want to make, and the outcomes that you want to create. And I can't overstate how important it is for you to take the time and get as clear and precise as you possibly can about these answers. Now, importantly, easy way to get lost in this is to think, well, I'm going to do this in 20 or 30 years, right? No, just like a good company vision, right? You want to make this, anchor this in 3 years' time. So think today is 2020, by the end of 2023, right? These are the person that I want to be, the impact that I want to have, the problems that I want to solve. It's going to help a whole bunch in terms of narrowing down all the options in front of you to find the right path forward for you. So first way you can maximize your value and impact in an organization is to create clarity. And the first thing you can do, the thing you can do today, even before you step foot in the organization that you're ultimately going to go work for and transform, is to build and create clarity for yourself by answering these specific questions. All right, step number 2, be strategic. Be strategic. Rich, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So then when I was thinking about this topic, I was thinking it's really hard not to think about the last 12 months for me and for IGS and for my family. So you go back 12 months this week, and my wife was diagnosed with cancer. We were going through the sale of IGS again. It was my third sale. There was a lot of eyes on 2019 performance, because when you are in the middle of a sale process, you're really having to do a lot of things at once, which is perform well and sell well. Sell not just internally, but externally very, very well. And, over the ensuing 4 or 5 months, we had COVID hit, which meant that my 3 kids went from school to home. About 10 feet from here, my 7-year-old, sat every day, and trying to, keep her going on virtual at-home school. The company had a ton of deferred projects. So at IGS, most of what we do is maintenance work. So this is critical work that has to be done. But that being said, our customers did not know how to handle contractors in March, April, May. So our entire book of business for the spring was basically pushed back. We did very few jobs. And so we were looking at our first year under partnership with our new private equity partner, who was expecting, 10, 20% growth, and we're going 20% backwards. I had cancer, I had kids at home. So it was like, for me, it was, how do we empower and use the organization to make tough choices in the spirit of what we're going through, to try to be courageous and be bold, to try to take advantage of opportunities that were in front of us. We couldn't control COVID, but we could certainly control how we responded. And so what we did is we really leveraged our objectives and key results process. We leveraged our flat global organization and the fact that we had talked a ton about what our vision was. And so we really, with that in mind, we had a structure set up where we enabled and empowered 100+ people that were leading these commitment meetings on a weekly basis, through 24 teams that were saying, we can't control COVID, but what we can control is taking little strategic, bold steps forward this week in this way. And for some of these people, it was doing something very simple, like following up with a vendor and seeing if we could extend payment terms. For others, it was reaching out to a customer whose job had not been rescheduled yet and asking to help out. For others, it was to schedule like a free inspection because we weren't going to get a paid job during the time. So it was being creative, being agile, delegating, and really trying to empower our team. And, Ben, I feel like what we've learned the most, and this is not, COVID and the impact on my family from our cancer battle has certainly been the largest thing that we've gone through in the last 10 years, but it hasn't been the only thing. But it's really been in moments like this that it really tests your ability to lean on, lean on people that are close to you to really empower your organization, to take the bold steps and to look for opportunities, even in tough times, to make courageous moves. And we're already seeing a ton of the fruit of those moves even now. So just a couple of quick thoughts. Hope that's consistent with what you're looking for.
Man, just reliving your last 12 months, Rich, even though I've been with you through that whole period, it's almost hard to believe all the stuff that you've gotten through. So when we think about strategic, what does this mean to the folks on the call here, right? There's a couple of things that I would, shine as someone who's been able to observe Rich as he's navigated all this uncertainty, and where the strategy piece of this comes in. Remember, a lack of strategy means we don't know what to do, right? Or we don't know how to do it. Excuse me. We don't know how to do it. Well, at the end of the day, nobody knew how to get through COVID, right? Everybody was making it up, right, as they go, because there was no playbook, right? You could throw the playbook away. Well, this is where there's always a temptation to throw the strategy away, right? To say, forget setting strategy. There's no way we can know. So might as well just kind of wing it, and make it up as we go without any kind of guidance. That's a massive mistake. And I'll tell you about this in just a second. But before I do, we're talking to an MBA class here, Rich. There's got to be a bunch of strategy experts on this call. Just type in if you've taken a strategy related class yet at Maze. Just type yes if you've taken any kind of strategy related class as part of your MBA. Suzanne, yes. Anybody else taking a strategy class? No. There we go. Yeah, Ben, thank you, my friend. John, all right, good. Just want to make sure. Again, Richard, we're trying to make sure that everyone's getting their money's worth here. If you're not getting strategy in your MBA, we got issues. But so I know you guys are familiar with strategy. Let me just kind of provide a very simple framework for thinking about strategy that I think will help and complement what you've already learned and help you to apply this in earnest when you get to that next company. So what the heck is strategy? Very simply put, a strategy is just a set of assumptions about how you go from where we are to where we want to be, right? Where we want to be is that vision that Rich was just talking about, that clarity on the outcomes, outcomes and impact that we want to create, right? Surrounding our strategy, creating essentially a box around our strategy, are going to be our mission and core values. Mission, this is why we exist in the world, right? The problem that we solve. Core values, these are the standards, the principles, the beliefs that guide our decision-making and behavior. Now, why do we describe this as a box? Because any kind of strategy that is outside the box, that's inconsistent with your mission or your core values, isn't a good strategy, right? That's out of scope, as we like to say, right? You don't want to pursue anything that's beyond the mission or core values of the company, right? But that's why we create the box that creates the guardrails. And then between where we are and where we want to go, remember this is about a 3-year time horizon. In between, we're going to define certain stage gates along the way. And with Rich and IGS, what I teach is a framework called OKR. I'm sure many of you are familiar with OKR. It's another just form of what we call a SMART goal, right? Goal setting. But that's why goals are so important, because they guide us along the path from where we are to where we want to go, even when the path is not entirely clear, right? We may know what we need to do over the next 30, 60, 90 days, next 6 months, but to know what we have to do in 2.5 years, it's just unknown because stuff like COVID happens. Now, once we have the OKRs in place, then we can create the plan, right? And the difference between a strategy and a plan is resource allocation, right? The plan is about how we're going to allocate time, energy, money to achieve our OKRs and our vision. All right, there it is. There's strategy 101 in a nutshell, right? And this is the kind of approach that we use with our companies to simplify so that everybody in an organization can understand the strategy. Now, what does this mean for you? Is that you need to have a plan. Even when all hell is breaking loose, you need to create some assumptions and sit down and clarify, what do we believe will happen? Doesn't mean that it will actually happen, but without a plan, we have almost no chance of actually getting where we want to go. right? And that may mean just at minimum, just having a vision of like surviving and surviving, getting to the next, getting through the next year. Or it may be more precise, right? More specific milestones, objectives, and key results that we want to create. In the old world of work, and this is the massive shift that is taking place right now. In the old world of work, strategy used to be very much a top-down, annual, and static process, right? Companies, when they talked about strategic planning, it's like, what are the big bets that we're going to take? And then essentially, they were just kind of holding their breath and hoping that it all worked out, right? And we're going to check in next January and see how we did, right? The way, what you would hear in the office would be, we're working on X because, the boss said we should, and we'll stop when the boss tells us to, right? Command and control, high fear, low trust environment. The new world, 2020 and beyond, and the ideas that Rich and I want you to embrace is that you have got to be agile, right? It is a different strategic animal out there. So what you're looking at is cultures. You're trying to create alignment, autonomy, and autonomy, right? People are together, but they're also acting independently to advance the strategy as individual agents, right? The process is much more iterative, right? We're going to try something, see if it works, and then very, very quickly gather data and determine whether we're going to continue to do it or we're going to go in a different direction. And then finally, the philosophy, right, is going to be one of experimentation, right? Learning, applying the insights, and then repeating. And what you see now is more of a data-driven approach to strategy, right? We're working on X because we think it's going to have impact Y, which matters because of Z, and we'll stop when the metrics have moved, right? That's what we're going for here in this new world of work. So as you think about being strategic, it's all about agility, right? Having a plan, but also being very, very adaptive and able to respond to new issues that emerge. All right. Step number 3, build engagement. Rich.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry about this. There we go. I'm at my parents. Everyone will appreciate this. I'm actually at my parents' house, who I think they're the last people in the world that actually have a landline that is, of course, going off as we're talking here.
Yeah. I was going to say, Ben, I was about to say that sound is a sound that I'm not sure many of these folks even know what that is.
They may have never actually heard that.
That's
sound.
a landline busy signal. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. So engagement, our early, look, IGS, there's just so many stories. I mean, sometimes for any of you guys in Virginia, you come through Richmond, buy you a beer, and I can tell you some more stories. But, some of our early challenges, actually were based on the kind of company that we are. So we're like highly technical, and we have these engineered solutions, but we're also a field team, field-based, more like a construction company than we are like an engineering services company. So we kind of got both. We have our field component, and at this point, about 450 employees with about 325 of those based in the field. And the majority of their interaction with anyone at IGS is on customer job sites. And then I have 100 and 150 others, with half of those that go to job sites, half of them are in the office. So this idea that we need to engage the global organization in, of course, back in 2009, which was what's smaller than it is now, but notwithstanding it, in creating the kind of company we were trying to create. So communication, engagement, just motivation was always a challenge. And, in 2000, I can remember in 2016, when we had gone through one of our big stair-step growth years, and we ended up onboarding a whole lot of field personnel from a company that was similar to ours, and they had their own way of doing things. And at this point, we would say that our organization was largely very scrappy, and like a lot of small companies, the experience that you got as a customer was largely dependent upon the team that you got, which for many of you who have ever done work in construction or frankly any kind of professional service is largely the challenge that you have. And so what we did is we decided to rally around this idea that we were going to create something altogether new in our field model. And so we all read General McChrystal's book, Team of Teams. and decided we were going to create our own version of IGS's team of teams. And we put one of our key field guys in charge of promoting the ideal structure. And so from a company of 4 or 5, field folks who were from 4 or 5 different organizations to working through the trenches of building something new together, for us, it was a lot about creating something new. And so we had the benefit of a growing organization that, was able to kind of draw a line in the sand, okay, and say, okay, from this point on, here's our vision, here's our 2024 vision. At that point, it was our 2020 vision of being at 60 million of sales. And it was, what's the best field organization we can create to deliver on our goal of 60 million of sales in a repeatable, high quality fashion. And so it was with that we enabled the organization really to set its course for our team of teams model, which today has tripled. We have team leaders, which are accountable for their teams. They're accountable for finding new members, for building those teams up. And so it's given us a much more scalable framework all on that basis. So it's been quite a journey, but for us, Ben, when I think about engagement, that's probably the top thing that comes to my mind.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that all of you, especially because you've had time in the workforce, understand the problem of low levels of engagement. You may not fully appreciate how systemic or broad-based this issue is. In the latest, I think it was 2018 Gallup State of the Workplace survey, 79% of employees said that they weren't motivated to do outstanding work. This is Rich's nightmare, right? We are hiring men and women, hundreds of men and women, right? And the idea that you invest time, energy, resource in people that ultimately aren't motivated or energized by the work that they're doing is a massive, massive problem and root cause of underperformance of companies around the world. So, I've talked to literally hundreds of hiring managers, and they all, when I ask, like, what are you looking for, right? When you distill down, what is a hiring manager actually looking for, right? I summarize it in 2 main questions, right? Number 1, can the person that I hire do the job, do the tasks at a very high level? And number 2, how hard am I going to have to work to motivate him or her to do the job at a very high level, right? And this, when you think about going into the organization, any organization, one very easy bar to cross is to demonstrate that you don't, quote unquote, need to be engaged, but that you will come in engaged, right? You will be engaged. And I know this is it's sort of a subtle semantic difference, but there's a real, I think, cultural challenge that most organizations are dealing with, which is in many ways, we've created environments where employees, we ask, are you engaged? And what I always encourage my clients to ask instead is, did you do your best today to be engaged, right? How hard are you personally working to find that source of energy and engagement? And so as you're thinking about, your next step, being able to understand what drives you, being able to generate your own, what we would describe, the academics would describe as intrinsic motivation, meaning motivation and engagement that comes from within, as opposed to expecting others to engage you, is going to be an absolute difference maker in any organization and really for your entire career. Because in every job, there are parts of it, and Rich can attest, right? He's the CEO of a $100 million company. Most of you, I'm sure, would be thrilled to be the CEO of a $100 million company, but there's some crappy parts of Rich's job. And yet, he doesn't have the choice to say, I don't really feel like doing this today, right? He's the CEO, the buck stops with him. So his responsibility to generate his own engagement, to show up engaged, to be engaged every single day, is exactly what he and other CEOs are looking for in men and women like yourselves, right? Does this person not only have the capacity to do the job, but how much fire and drive and energy can they bring to the organization? Because that's going to be the ultimate difference maker at the end of the day. So the question for you, or what I'd like to share with you, is where does actually engage? What is engagement? And I have a very, very simple way of thinking about engagement that I hope you'll find helpful. And it's this alignment. right? And it's alignment between three critical elements. The first and most obvious is that your actions, what you do. You can think about action as like the choices you make, the decisions you take, the actual actions, your behaviors, right? Alignment, that your actions allow you to meet your goals, right? Get you what you want. And this is the critical point that most people don't fully appreciate. Your actions allow you to meet your goals in a manner consistent with your values. In a manner consistent with your values. When men and women experience this alignment, they are jumping out of bed in the morning, energized and excited to do the work that they have to do. The problem for so many of us is that we actually just focus on the action and the goal, right? We say, hey, what do I have to do to make $250,000 a year, right? Just hypothetically. Failing to recognize that there's a variety of different ways you can, jobs you can take that will pay you $250,000 a year. But the degree of satisfaction and engagement that you have in that work is going to be all dependent on your values, and not just any set of values, but your personal core values. And so one thing that I've developed as part of my work, and I want to share this with you today, is what I call a personal core values assessment, personalcorevalues.com. And it allows you to actually get a very specific and data-driven view on what your real personal core values are. So that when you're looking at a company and you're evaluating that company and their company core values, right off the bat, you can take a look at that and say, okay, these company core values are very consistent with my personal core values. If that's the case, then the chances of you being engaged in that organization and doing the work that they're asking you to do is much higher than if there's a real misalignment between your personal core values and the values of the organization. But the problem is most of us don't know what our personal core values are. So that's why I created this assessment. And again, just because you guys, this is such a critical concept, and I want you to get this right. If you want to take this personal core values assessment, you can do so for free for the next 24 hours. Go to personalcorevalues.com. Just go through the log in, and there's a little button for a promo code. Type in Aggies, and that'll give it to you for free. So you can take this assessment for the next 24 hours. But this is a really critical piece of data that you need in order to generate and sustain the engagement that you're after. A lot of people say, gosh, I'm doing everything I thought I was supposed to do, but I just don't feel very good. Almost always the root cause of that disengagement is going to be a values mismatch. So personalcorevalues.com, type it Aggies, and you can take that for free for the next 24 hours. All right, last but not least, home stretch here, and then we'll stop for questions. Hope you guys have some questions. Step number 4, in order to maximize the value and impact you can create in this new world of work, develop focus. Develop focus. Rich, can you talk a little bit about focus and what that means to you? Yeah,
I am, Ben, and I can, but I want to say something just real quick on your point of engagement. Just to kind of tie what I was thinking about from that Team of Teams project. A lot of times there is sort of this perspective that that engagement and this exercise around what's most important to you, et cetera, is like a luxury that only a few people can sort of afford. But what I feel like we really learned through our project with Team of Teams was that, our whole organization has the same DNA, which is they want valuable work, they want to have input in what they do, and they want some autonomy in how they do it. So that's not the composite of everyone's values, but that was like some common themes. And so what we created at IGS plugged in exactly to what you're saying, which is fit. The job composition, in this case, 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, to some of the key things that were super important for our field teams. But the thing on focus, I was thinking about it. Like I alluded to earlier, I just cannot underestimate just the extent to which, and I've heard so many of my mentors over the years tell me this, the extent to which, hardships or setbacks or things that are super hard in terms of overwhelming amount of work, personal setbacks, professional setbacks, they do create this opportunity, this sort of like fork in the road, and either they can overcome you or you can use it as an opportunity to say what is most important and focus on what is most critical and sort of choose your path. For us, I talked about COVID, but I mean, 2020 is just a year that I'd love to forget. Just a whole lot of challenges. But what I've really learned this year is to develop. Just want to share with you guys some of those. I think Ben has helped me a lot in this way. And so some of what I do is sort of a combination of what I've learned from Ben and also just what I've learned from some other good mentors. And there's two main things. One is that I'm thinking a lot these days about my habits and how they form who I am. A lot of people don't think about it like this, but it's more than just what you eat and sort of what you do every day, but it's like your whole sort of routine from what you think about when you wake up, the kind of spiritual practices that you employ, the kind of friendships that you cultivate, just the way that you organize and structure your day, the kind of posture that you have in your day. I mean, all of these things, there's like habits that we all sort of have around these things. Sometimes they're intentional and sometimes they're unintentional, but in the middle of what's been a really crazy year, I've just been thinking a lot and reading a lot, and I'm happy to send you guys some really good book ideas on this topic about how the things that we do every day really form who we are, as well as the things that we are really form the things that we do. So I think that there's a real balance there. And the second thing, and Ben's helped me a ton with this, is this idea of daily planning. So it's in the morning, practicing a routine of checking in on my key habits that I need to make sure that I employ for the day, but also revisit the things that are most important and then schedule those in. So on a weekly basis, I have my what's most important for the whole week. I mean, some of you guys, I'm sure, do a way better job than I do on this. I use a daily planning tool called the Full Focus Planner. That's just really worked for me. But whether you use a planner like that or just a sheet of paper or your Outlook calendar or your Outlook tasks, just really, really encourage that, because that really helps you get clear about the stuff that can really bog you down versus the most important stuff, and then scheduling time to get the most important things in life done. And then lastly, just having an accountability partner there. So I mentioned that Ben's been coaching me for a while. That's been really helpful. My YPO forum helps hold me accountable on sort of 3-month basis type items. I share a lot about what's most important, with respect to aspirations for our marriage and our kids with my wife. I'm just very transparent about it, and I've just given her permission to give me feedback on how I'm doing, and just being really, really thoughtful and deliberate, because the things like unexpected doctor's visit or putting out a fire with a bad project that you didn't expect to go south, or missing a financial projection. I mean, all these things happen, and those things can really take over you. And the more you spend time in your career progressing, what you're going to find is that, contrary to what I used to think, it's actually that whirlwind gets bigger and it's even more substantial. So, daily practices, daily habits, just being super thoughtful about what I allow into my day and being careful about that, has just really made a big difference for me. And it's something that I haven't arrived at yet, but it's something I'm certainly learning right now.
In so many ways, guys, the developing focus is the work of our life, especially in this world that we live in, where there's just so much noise, distraction, confusion. I always like to remind people of what we call the success paradox, right? We know that when we are focused, just as Rich described it, we are successful. But here creates the problem. Typically, when you have success, you are then going to be offered new options and opportunities. And it's those new options and opportunities that create distraction. And it's then, of course, the distraction that leads to subsequent failure. So it's ironic, right? The more successful we are, the more vulnerable we are to losing that success or failing as a result of overwhelm. And Rich has used the term, I've used the term already. We love this term in our organizations called the whirlwind, right? And the whirlwind is just the term to describe all the crap we've got to do every single day, right? The time and energy required to just do our day job, to live our life day to day, right? And that whirlwind, it just gets spinning up faster and faster and faster. And, you know, I have seen organizations who've got absolute world-class strategic planning processes in place. The plans themselves are amazing, so creative, so thoughtful, so innovative, and yet they're not happening. It doesn't get done. And you ask why, you dig in and say, what's going on here? It's not because the plan, the strategy wasn't amazing. It's just simply because people were so overwhelmed with stuff to do that they never made time to do those 1 or 2 or 3 most important things. And therefore the project never got started. The strategy never got implemented. Right? This is the biggest, perhaps, single threat to every organization that I work with. And it's one that's not going away. It requires you, as Rich has said, to develop certain habits and practices that will help you manage the whirlwind and create the space that you need to get your most important work done every single day. And a few that I really, teach and I espouse, commitments, right? Making commitments about specific actions or outcomes that you're going to take or create every given week, and sharing those with an accountability partner, a coach, a peer, whomever. Daily planning, Rich talked about it. Deep work, which is shutting down all distraction so that you can focus for 30 minutes, for 45 minutes, for 90 minutes on the absolute most cognitively demanding stuff that needs to get done, the difference-making activity, and shutting everything else down so that you can be focused and attentive to that one specific project. Daily questions, asking at the end of the day, did I do my best to make progress on the things that are most important to me? Did I do my best to be a great husband, a great wife, a great spouse, a great partner? Did I do my best to eat healthy, to be healthy? I mean, these kinds of questions create that accountability and allow you at the end of the day to check in and say, did I let the whirlwind take over, or did I do the things that were most important to me? And then a quarterly review, which is just simply catching up every 90 days, looking back on the last 3 months and saying, what worked, what didn't, and what do I need to do more of, less of, differently going forward? I like to say, like, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your habits. And that's why the habits, why focus is so important, and why as you enter into this new world of work, your ability to focus and get your most important work done every single day is an absolute difference maker that will set you apart from everybody else in your team or in your organization. Because this is hard, and so many really, really otherwise talented executives struggle with managing that whirlwind. So that's what we got, guys. I want to just review 4 steps. 1, create clarity. 2, be strategic. 3, build engagement. And 4, develop focus. Master these, and you will maximize the value and impact that you have if you come to work for an organization like IGS. You go, as you move into your next career opportunity, you bring this to any given organization, and you will quickly differentiate yourself and position yourself to not only grow in that organization, but to really thrive. So thank you all for being here. And if we have any questions, Richard, happy to answer them. And or here are our email addresses. You can always shoot us a note, and we'll do our best to get back to you.
Yeah, just real quick. I know Dr. Mahajan has a comment. There's probably going to be a couple questions. I just wanted to say, wow, on a personal level, it should resonate with a lot of us. On a professional level as well, really great lifelong lessons, I think, learned here today. And man, what an audience for it, huh? I mean, a lot of our students, the MS business students, are just getting ready to really get, started in their careers. Our MBAs, obviously, something that they can walk away from here at some point in the near future and have these things front of mind. Awesome. Thank you so much for that presentation. Dr. Mahajan, your comment.
Thank you, Richard. And actually, I normally have a bunch of questions, and I did have one. I unfortunately jumped to another meeting, but I did have one which really had to do with, in particular, in private equity, where the goal is to take over an organization which perhaps is operating suboptimally, change the management or manage it yourself, make some really hard decisions. and then IPO it or sell it after 5 years. And typically that part of the business can be pretty brutal because you have to make some hard decisions, turnarounds, etc. So my question was going to be, when you're making those decisions, how do you reconcile with this issue of stakeholder versus stockholder? Because stockholder maximization requires some pretty brutal, tough decisions, whereas considering other factors of production requires a more gentle hand. However, your talk today, frankly, has preempted my question, because both Ben and you, Rich, really are touching upon much larger philosophical issues of what is a good life, what is a fulfilling life, what is a purposeful life.
No.
And really, it borders on what philosophers have been talking about. You know, Mortimer Adler, the famous philosopher historian, who was the editor of Encyclopedia Britannica and the great books of the Western world, and created the Aspen Institute, where they'll invite in Fortune 100 CEOs precisely to talk about these issues. So if you have CEOs and our students who are the future CEOs thinking from this perspective, it automatically mitigates and minimizes the agency problem. Because you are good human beings, you are, while obligated to shareholders, you are considering the larger good, which takes care of the stakeholder issue. So really, in a way, you have preempted my question, and I'm really inspired by what you said. And while some of the issues you have raised may not resonate with our young, budding, aspiring scholars, because they are young, but these are incredibly valuable things which have been taken to heart. Because like you said, habits. Philosophers have spent more time talking about habits than many things we can ever imagine. So thank you very much. Before I jump off, I just wanted to express to you how valuable this talk has been. I'm sure to our students, but to me as well. And I will look forward to staying engaged with you, both of you, if the opportunity arises over an extended period of time. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks for those words. I really appreciate that. Just a couple of quick thoughts that come to mind is, first of all, I do think that, lest I am so proud that we've sort of figured it all out here, and you know, we're the only ones that have. I do think that we enjoy a unique spot. You know, when you're in the middle market world, let's say revenues under 750 million, 500 million, maybe revenues under $1 billion. I do think that, you know, I've had 3 private equity partners, all of which have been very supportive of our philosophy of leadership and management. And the philosophy has never been, let's go in and just change management out. That being said, I would say that it does frequently happen that the leadership team just can't quite get to the next level. And so they have to be, they have to be top graded. And so I feel very fortunate to sit in a spot where my team has really risen to the occasion, but we've been doing some top grading too. So I'm sure glad I'm the CEO of a $100 million company and not the CEO of a $5 billion company, because I don't think I could do that. I don't think I'm smart enough, and I'm probably not sharp elbowed enough. So I'll say that. But second, on this point about philosophy of shareholder stakeholder, I mean, maybe it's just very naive, and I'm only in my mid 40s, but I mean, I really believe that the power to unlock shareholder value is getting your most important asset, which is your people, at the very top end of their game. And so when you hire really great people and you motivate the heck out of them, like, that is the single best thing that you can do to like drive peak performance. And that's true for any kind of company. I do have a service company, so it's easy for me to say that perhaps, but any kind of company, I believe, and all the CEOs of YPO that I know in 50 different countries, they all say the same thing. It's all about getting your people to the top spot. So if you're doing a really good job as a leader, engaging your people, which are doing those smart things to invest in them, engage in them, create that clarity, get the most out of them, that's a line for shareholders too, because you're going to create the best outcomes then. So I'm a firm believer we can sort of have our cake and eat it too, but it's also nice being at this size range and having amazing private equity partners that really aren't playing the let's just change out the leadership team game. They really want a good outcome, and they partner with teams that they think can really make it to that next level. So.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Ben. I'm going to take off. Continue, please. Thank you.
I do want to be respectful of time because we agree to 1 hour, but if you wouldn't mind, I do have one student who'd like to ask a question. So I'm just going to go ahead and let him unmute. Jake, why don't you go ahead? Jake is one of our MS business students. So Jake, go ahead and unmute and ask your question directly to Rich and Ben.
Sure. Hey, Rich. Hey, Ben. Thank you very much for taking this hour out of your week to come speak to us. Clearly, you made this important enough to carve out this hour in your busy schedules. But I know I heard Rich mention the Full Focus Planner. If I'm not mistaken, that's from Michael Hyatt. And so my question really goes to you, Ben. How have you created over these years? I know you've been doing it for a long time, but how have you created, what kind of leaders and what kind of information or curriculum have you referenced in order to create your coaching philosophy? Because like I mentioned, I mean, Michael Hyatt just released one of his books, or is going to release, The Vision-Driven Leader. And so I just wanted to ask you, what kind of leaders, or could you point me in the right direction? What kind of references do you use or have used over the past 8-10 years developing your coaching philosophy?
Yeah, I mean, the old adage rings true that I stand on the shoulder of giants, right? I mean, everything that I have done, and my whole philosophy, it has been learned and then refined through experience. What I'll do, Jake, is I'll share sandsleadership.com/resources. You can see my recommended book list, as well as some tools, including a daily planning template that you can review, and you'll see all the different wonderful thought leaders that I have learned from, and again, I hope you could dig into that list. I'd read every book on that list for sure.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. I figured I'd ask. I guess hey, real quick, Rich, can I ask you, how do you like the Full Focus Planner? Because I was considering buying it, but I never got around to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's about $25, so you can buy it and try it for a quarter. If you don't like it, don't buy them anymore. I mean, I like them. They're like, I find that there's a few extra pages in there that I don't really use. I like the discipline and accountability. I mean, like it sits right here. So I have my like y'all can't see my screen, but I have like my laptop, I have my notes, I have my Full Focus Planner, and it sits there like all the time. And for some people, they really need to have it virtual. They're just big into Outlook tasks. I like having a little hard copy. That helps me. So yeah, I mean, you should try it. It's easy enough. I'm not getting paid by Michael. I hate to plug this. I don't really care. But I think a one pager, I think something on a single piece of paper is key. And, this is as good as any. So.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Richard.
Go ahead, Ben. Go ahead, Ben.
I was going to say, in terms of planning, getting away from, like, the tool doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't matter at all. But one very specific habit that I would, I ask this in interviews, and it just gives me a sense as to how susceptible any given executive is to the whirlwind, which is, at what point in your day do you first check your email? And Jake, just take this one. What do you think? What do I want to hear when I ask somebody, at what time in your day, when do you first check your email?
I would assume it'd be later in the day after you've taken the time to plan out the day and figure exactly how you're going to do the rest of the day. And probably, I'm sure the answer usually is at the beginning of the morning. That's probably the wrong answer.
Amen. Right on the money, right? And there's one of the biggest threats to our ability to identify the important and to get it done is our email inbox. I always like to say, like, your inbox is somebody else's to-do list. And one of the easiest corrections in any kind of executive's day or planning process is to push back the point at which they check their email, so that they do create that space to put their priorities in place, to start executing on those priorities, and then create some very intentional time to deal with their email inbox and respond to other people's priorities. So just something to keep in mind for everybody. The longer you can push out that first email inbox check-in, typically the more productive your morning will be, and by extension, the more productive your day will be.
Excellent. Hey, I just wanted to let you know, like the first few minutes of the session, Tim checked in with me. He said, hey, I know the guys are on. Just let him know that I guess it was some sort of once in a lifetime opportunity for his wife, and he felt like he needed to be there to support her. So he felt bad, but he just wanted to let you know he was thinking about you guys.
Well, that's a better move.
Yeah,
he should have absolutely been on that and not been on this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was at least smart, right? From a personal level, right?
Yeah.
Hey, listen, gentlemen, thank you guys so much for doing this. We really appreciate it. I know our students really got a lot out of it. I'm confident of that, because I certainly know myself. I got a lot of great takeaways from this. And, you know, I definitely look forward to, you know, keeping in touch with you both, and seeing how we can, you know, engage in the future. And Rich, might take you up on that. You know, if I'm in Richmond, if I'm in that area, take you up for a beer. And
yeah.
You know, yeah, definitely good times.
That'd be great.
Right. Thank you all.
We love it.
Good to see you.
Stay
y'all.
safe, and best of luck the rest of 2020, huh?
Yeah.
And to you.
Amen. Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See you.